Floral stamping is what got me hooked on stamping on handmade cards in the first place, and it's kind of been a while since I last just stamped some simple one-layer cards without any tricks or techniques. I've really missed that and decided to stamp a few super simple cards today. Hi everyone, I'm Yana Smakula and I'm hoping you will love this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell too to be notified of every new upload. I've picked a new, so-loved stamp set by Simon Says Stamp for my cards today, as this is one of those perfect stamp sets for beginner and experienced stampers alike. It's a large 6 by 8 inches stamp set with many beautiful and pretty big sentiments, as well as some bold and graphic florals. Most images in here have a solid and an outlying layer, giving me a whole lot of options when stamping. It's kind of like having a layering stamp set in a way, but not quite. There's only 2 layers, and that is what makes it easier to use this set. I will say this stamp set does look complicated at first. If you are like me, you're looking at it and probably wondering what goes with what. But never fear, all of these images, once combined together, give you beautiful illustrated-like florals and leaves for your handmade projects. With sets like this, I often like to practice first and stamp a few images onto printer paper. I don't like to use my good Nina Solar White cardstock as it's expensive, so I don't like to use it for testing, as I'm not sure if my idea will pan out or not, so I just stamp on printer paper until I'm sure. Here I've stamped 4 super simple one-layer floral cards. All have a different layout, but all use the same stamp set. So loved. The last one uses a big thank from the Heart stamp set, also from Simon Says Stamp, and it's another one of their newer sets. With all of these cards and layouts, I wanted to show you the number of possibilities and kinds of different cards you can make using this set. Now, I just barely scratched the surface here, obviously, with all of the different options, but I'm hoping that this will help you jumpstart your creativity with this or perhaps a similar set. I've already picked the ink colors for my cards, and I decided to stick with the same colors for all of my projects just to make it easier for myself. If you switch colors too much, you'll need to pause and clean your stamps thoroughly, and this is honestly not something that I'm a fan of. I'm guilty to admit, but I almost never clean my stamps. There, I said it. So the colors are Rosy Cheeks, Hollyhock, Rose Apple, Catkin, Cloudy Sky, Seafoam, Clementine, and Sun-Kissed. I decided I was going to go old school and stamp all of these using my clear blocks only and not use my stamp platform. Why? Well, because when you use a stamp platform, while you do get better results, there's no doubt there, you also get slowed down a lot. And not that I was on a timed stamping date with my stamps or anything like that, but I also did not want to spend twice as much time stamping these using a MISTI. I wanted to get things done, and I wanted them done quickly. I am an impatient type of person, in case you haven't noticed yet. Not my proudest quality, and I honestly don't know how my husband puts up with me, but what can you do? I've started with a sun-kissed color here to stamp the sentiment in the center of this panel. This is cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and next I used Catkin to stamp the little mini sentiment next to the main one. I tried to stay away from black today. I always use it, and one would think that there's no other ink color out there to stamp sentiments in. So I decided no black for these cards and just lots of pretty colors. The largest flower here did not want to stamp perfectly, and it was giving me a gap in the center, but it was easily fixable. I just dragged the paper on my work surface until I came to an edge, and I kind of rock and rolled the paper and stamp until I had my perfect ink transfer. With these kinds of inks, dye inks, you have to remember that the ink looks not that great when it is first stamped. It looks splotchy, it looks uneven and imperfect, and that sort of invites you to use your stamping tool to double stamp these images to get rid of those imperfections instantly. But if you give your ink some time, 5 or 10 minutes, it will absorb into the paper and it will look much better. So for this card idea, I stamped the sentiment in the center and surrounded it with beautiful floral frame, stamping the flowers and leaves on the perimeter of this panel. I started with largest images first and moved on to smaller images later. I added a second outline layer to the flowers using a shade darker ink color, and my goal here was to offset these. I did not want to layer them up perfectly. I wanted to have this imperfection, and you'll actually see me do this on all cards that I'm sharing today. This imperfection looks great, I think. It doesn't, of course, work every time and for every project, but for this card or for this set of cards that I'm sharing today, it was exactly what I was going for. I did not have a suitable green color to stamp over catkin, so I used my super old brown ink pad instead. This is a vintage sepia VersaFine ink from Tsukineko, and I also have the same ink in black, and I absolutely love it. It's like the best ink out there, and it will last you for a very long time. This brown ink pad, I've had it since I got into stamping, which was probably about 8 to 10 years ago. I haven't used it a lot, but it's still pretty juicy. And did I mention that it had traveled with me to the United States and back? Yeah, I've had it for a long time and it still works great. Not like new, but still great. So I finished stamping this panel. I adhered it onto an A2 white side folding card base, well, a top folding card base since it's a landscape card, and I embellished it with a few sequins from the Hawaiian Sunset Mix, plus I added a tiny green enamel heart next to the sentiment, and I called this card done. Super flat, super easy to make, and even easier to mail. Moving on to card idea number 2. Here, I started by stamping a sentiment, and this is how I start all of my cards today. Sentiments are the largest element on my cards today, so it's only natural to begin by stamping them first. The layout that I was going for, I wanted flowers and leaves to come out of this sentiment cluster. I wanted a blooming sentiment, if you will. I wish I had stamped the sentiment a little bit higher on this panel, as by the time I was done stamping everything else, the flowers and the leaves and all the other filler elements, I realized that the sentiment was stamped a little bit too low. But that's okay. I ended up trimming this panel down slightly and adhering it onto an A2 pink card base, so I was still able to use it no problem. By the way, I recently published another video featuring this same stamp set, but in a very different way, without using the outline images and only using the solids and adding details with my colored pencils. I have it linked right here in the cards if you'd like to check it out, and I do hope that you will like that idea as well. For my card idea number 3, I again started by stamping a sentiment. You are so loved in Hollyhock ink, and not just by me, little sentiment in brown. For this card, I was picturing an oval wreath surrounding the sentiment and framing it in a way. The wreath was very easy to stamp. I just envisioned the oval and followed that imaginary oval outline with my images. If you have trouble following a shape that's not clearly marked on the paper, you can use a pencil and lightly outline an oval die, for example, to make sure it is easier for yourself to stamp a well-balanced and gorgeous wreath. Once I had added the outline layers to these images, the whole card transformed and started to look much better. Here, I am combining the solid with the outline, and like I mentioned, I shared that other video where I used just the solid, but you can also use just the outline images and color them using your favorite coloring medium. The leaf outline looks really interesting to me, and I'm looking forward to coloring it with my colored pencils on some dark cardstock for a lot of contrast and wow. My last card for today features the large thanks stamped 3 times. Sorry my hat is getting in the way here from time to time. When I get too excited and completely dive into my work, I forget that I'm filming and I forget to keep my hat out of the camera, so I'm sorry about that, guys. Here I created 3 floral clusters. Remember that rule of a visual triangle? So here I went for that rule and I stamped 3 floral clusters around the thank. I also added leaves and of course the little tiny flowers. I really adore tiny florals from this set. You can really have so much fun with these stamps and stamp a whole background, a partial background. You can use them in your planners or on envelopes or gift tags. It's just one of those universal sets, I would say. A very beautiful set, but also one that is super easy to use, and you don't really see that often these days. Stamping is done. Here's another look at all of the 4 cards that I made. And like I said, super easy, one layer, no tricks, just old school stamping. I hope you'll give this idea a try using these or other stamps from your stash. If you do, please share online and tag me on social media. I always love seeing what you guys are making. On the screen, there's a link to a playlist with all of my videos featuring pattern stamping. Subscribe now not to miss any new card making tutorials. Thanks for watching. I love you guys. I'll see you next week.